Thanksgiving was always my favorite holiday, not because of the turkey or the pies, but because it was the only time I could pretend, even for a day, that my family still felt like one. After my husband passed, I gave everything to my son, Ethan. I signed over the house he grew up in, cashed out part of my retirement for his business idea, and helped raise his daughter when he and his wife were too busy building a future. I never asked for a thank you. A hug now and then would have been enough. Please subscribe to our channel and tell me in comments from where are you watching this video. But something had changed when Ethan married Vanessa. She was one of those women who smiled with her mouth and judged with her eyes, the kind who said, "Bless your heart," when she meant, "Stay in your lane." From the beginning, she made it clear that I was nothing more than a placeholder, a relic from Ethan's past, useful only when she needed a free babysitter or someone to clean up her designer kitchen after dinner parties. She didn't like how Ethan talked to me, how he still looked to me for advice, how I folded his shirts when they came out wrinkled from the dryer. She didn't want to share him, not even with his mother. But I smiled through it. I told myself, this is what mothers do. They endure. When Thanksgiving came around that year, I was surprised to get an invitation at all. Vanessa had spent the last 2 holidays on cruises with her family or hosting exclusive dinners where I wasn't quite the vibe. So when the invite came in, a group message with a winking turkey emoji and the words, "Casual, just family," I felt a twinge of hope. Maybe things were turning around. I even wore my best cardigan and brought my famous sweet potato casserole, the one Ethan always asked for when he was little. My hands trembled slightly when I parked outside their modern glass and steel home. Their driveway was packed with shiny cars. I recognized most of them, Vanessa's influencer friends, her sister with a nose job, and a few co-workers she once bragged made 6 figures before 30. As I stepped inside, Vanessa greeted me with her usual tight-lipped smile and air kisses that never touched skin. Ethan was busy opening a bottle of wine, barely acknowledging me with a distracted, "Hey, Mom." I set my casserole on the counter and made my way to the dining room where the table was already set. Vanessa announced dinner would be fun and informal, and everyone would be served surprise plates. A quirky new idea she saw in some viral video. People laughed and clapped. It was supposed to be hilarious. I forced a smile and sat quietly at the far end near the fireplace. One by one, plates were served with theatrical flair. Laughter erupted as someone got mashed potatoes shaped like a smiley face. Another guest had rainbow-colored deviled eggs. When my plate came, I smiled politely and lifted the silver lid. Then everything stopped. A can of dog food, slopped directly onto a china plate. Uncovered, unseasoned, unmistakable. The smell hit me first, pungent and metallic. My stomach turned, not from the scent, but from the silence that followed. Then came the snickering. Vanessa's shrill laugh cut through the air, followed by a chorus of giggles. "Oh my God, you should have seen your face!" she howled. "It's a joke, relax. I mean, she's always feeding the dog table scraps. Thought we'd return the favor." People laughed harder. Ethan chuckled nervously and said nothing. Nothing. I looked down at the plate, then back up at my son. No apology. Not even eye contact. My hands trembled, but I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I slowly stood up, picked up the plate of dog food, and walked it back to the kitchen. I placed it gently in the sink, wiped my hands, and grabbed my coat. Vanessa shouted after me, "Come on, it was just a bit of fun." I didn't answer. I walked out of that house as quietly as I had entered. But in my mind, something snapped. The kind of snap that doesn't break you. It reshapes you. They thought they'd humiliated me. They thought I'd go home and disappear into the wallpaper like always. But I had no intention of disappearing. Not this time. This time, I was going to remind them who I was before they mistook me for a doormat. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time, still in the same cardigan I wore to the dinner. My reflection stared back with hollow eyes, and for a moment, I barely recognized the woman looking back at me. But beneath the sadness, something had changed, quietly, firmly. There was resolve now. I wasn't going to let them erase me. I spent that day gathering old papers, deeds, contracts, bank statements, proof of everything I had done for Ethan over the years. The house he was living in, bought with my husband's life insurance. The startup funds for his business. My 401k cashed out early. Even the family dog, yes, the same one Vanessa joked about, was paid for by me when their daughter cried for a puppy. That night, I made a few phone calls to my lawyer, to an old friend in real estate, to a nonprofit I used to volunteer at, which happened to be looking for a quiet place to open a women's shelter. The idea came together quicker than I expected. It was like the universe had been waiting for me to wake up. Meanwhile, I didn't say a word to Ethan. He didn't call to check in, didn't apologize, not even a text. I wasn't surprised. His silence confirmed what I had long feared. He had changed, or maybe he'd always been this way, and I was just too blinded by love to see it. By the end of the week, the paperwork was in motion. Legally, I still owned the deed to the house Ethan and Vanessa lived in. I had never transferred the title, not because I didn't trust them, but because I'd simply forgotten in the chaos after my husband died. Funny how life gives you lifelines when you least expect it. I arrived at their home the following weekend with 2 men in suits, a locksmith, and a very polite woman from the Shelter Foundation. Ethan was outside, watering the plants. Vanessa was inside, scrolling through her phone and sipping some green smoothie concoction. They didn't notice me until the locksmith began changing the locks. Ethan came running up, confused. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I'm exercising my rights," I replied calmly, holding up a folder with all the documents. "This house is mine, always has been, and I'm repurposing it." "Repurposing it?" Vanessa laughed. "For what, a dog kennel?" "No," I smiled coldly. "For women who've been thrown away, laughed at, disrespected. I'm donating it to the shelter. Effective immediately. You have until sunset to remove your personal belongings." Vanessa's mouth fell open. "You can't be serious." "I was never more serious in my life," I said, locking eyes with Ethan. He stared at me like I was a stranger. "You're throwing us out? Your own son?" I stepped closer. "You fed your mother dog food and laughed. You stood by while your wife humiliated me in front of a room full of strangers. You haven't asked if I'm okay once. You haven't been my son in a long time, Ethan. I'm just giving you the freedom you've already claimed." His voice cracked. "Where are we supposed to go?" Vanessa, flustered and suddenly pale, stammered, "We have a guest list finalized for our holiday party. You can't just... This is a neighborhood with rules." I shrugged. "Well, you better hope the shelter follows them. Maybe they'll be quieter tenants than you were." By late afternoon, they were gone. Bags stuffed into the trunk of Vanessa's Tesla. No apologies, no tears. Just shock, fury, and disbelief. And me? I stayed until the locks were finished, then handed the keys to the shelter director. "You just changed more than your own life," she said gently. "I hope so," I whispered. For the first time in years, I felt like I had done something truly powerful, not out of revenge, but out of reclamation, reclaiming my dignity, my worth, my voice. The next Thanksgiving was different. There was no family chaos, no awkward laughter masking insults. Instead, I was seated at a long table filled with women who had been through storms of their own. Abandoned mothers, forgotten grandmothers, even a young girl who reminded me of myself decades ago. The house that once echoed with Ethan and Vanessa's shallow conversations now pulsed with resilience and gratitude. The shelter had transformed the space beautifully. The kitchen was vibrant with activity, the dining room glowing with warm light, and the old living room, where Vanessa once laughed at me, now served as a reading nook with shelves full of donated books. One corner even held framed photos of women who had turned their lives around thanks to that roof. I brought mashed potatoes and a pumpkin pie, and when I walked through the front door, every woman smiled like I was someone who mattered. No one called me a burden. No one laughed behind my back. Weeks later, I bumped into Ethan at a grocery store. He looked thinner, tired, hollow in a way I didn't recognize. Vanessa wasn't with him. He said nothing at first, just stared at me with eyes that used to know me better. "I'm sorry," he finally muttered. I nodded. I hope you find your way, Ethan. Truly. Then I walked past him, leaving him in the aisle with nothing but regret and the echo of the woman he thought would always stay silent. I hadn't just served a surprise that Thanksgiving. I'd served a lesson. And I didn't look back.